Stock markets should be plummeting right now, but we have QE and easy money policies in place supporting it. But we see QE failing and a global catastrophe beginning. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Bank of Japan keeps the policy steady, says Japan economy moderately recovering. But it was just a few videos ago where I showed you that Japan had hit another recession. And here they are coming out in the mainstream media and attempting to fool the general public. And it will work. For those general people in the general public who are not awake, they are going to say, well, we're recovering. Just like in the US, they say everything is just fine because they keep showing the S&P and the Dow Jones. Don't look at the real unemployment rate. Look at this fake unemployment rate that we supply you with. This is crazy the way they do this, and the public really does fall for it. But this is a failed policy. Japan has been in this situation for decades, and you can see how bad QE really is. And you know that things are getting bad when the bankers have to get into riskier and riskier in quote-unquote investments. And right here, this is yet more of those investments, and I'm just talking about mortgage-backed securities. They are taking on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the worst of the worst subprime debt, and they are going to do more gambling with it. This didn't work a few years ago. It's not going to work today, but they're increasing them doing this, and this is not just in the US. In fact, this is out of Bloomberg. Goldman Sachs says it's adding staff to its European asset-backed securities business as the bank prepares for a resurgence in the $300 billion market that shrank more than 40% over the past 4 years. Now, for good reason, it shrank so significantly, and it should shrink a lot more. In fact, it should be obliterated because asset-backed security should not exist. I'll show you in a moment what that is, but essentially they're calling them securities, and I just love it when they call these things a funky name like this. Is it collateralized debt obligations? Is it asset-backed securities? Are they securities? Are they any of the other names that they create? And it is one name, and that's the name that I always have given it, and it is garbage. It is nothing but garbage because it has no value whatsoever. This is all of the most toxic of toxic debt, and they are packaging it up and making it AAA. The highest rating possible is getting with all of this garbage. It's crazy the way that the rating agencies are allowing this to happen because they're all in collusion together. So let's get into that. I did the diagram in my book. I hope you guys really appreciate these diagrams, and I show you them here on the YouTube channel because they're so telling. It's so easy to look at. Look at this. This is a CDO. I always get people asking me, what are derivatives? What are collateralized debt obligations? Look at this right here. This is a simplified version, of course. You have things like car loans, mortgages, and credit card debt. They take all of this, all of the worst types too, and then they package it up in this little present. They put a bow on top of it, and it looks so nice and pretty. And then they get their friends at the rating agencies to rate it a AAA, quote-unquote, investment, and then they sell it on the market. And then when all of these people start going bankrupt, because again, they took on the worst debt, when all of them start going bankrupt, it starts to look really bad on that collateralized debt obligation, and suddenly that AAA investment isn't so AAA after all. And that's what happened with the subprime mortgages. They failed horribly. Now, let's go on. Greek bailout review stalls as the Troika demands final steps. This is out of Bloomberg, and basically, for those who don't know, the Troika is no different than any other technocratic institution, a tyrannical government. They are all monitoring and controlling the system from above the government structure. That's how the way this works. You have laws in place, you have a structure set in place. Well, there's always going to be a technocratic elite for the foreseeable future. There's always going to be this technocratic elite that sits above. And just look at, for example, those individuals in the EU. If you're from the EU, you have to realize that your own government isn't in control. And even though the voting system is so so fake, it's so fraudulent. You even have something above that. And then we look at the structure like the IMF. The IMF, nobody voted them in, but our tax dollars are going to the IMF all around the world. We're giving up money to this supranational organization that commits so many crimes around the world. Greece's government and its international creditors are deadlocked over a final round of measures required to release the last tranche of the country's bailout. And they're saying, you know what, you got to do more austerity. You have to sell more of your assets. And that's what the Troika says. That's what things like the IMF, they come in and they start saying, you have to sell more. You sold off many islands. Nope, you gotta sell them all. Keep going. They will sell off all of the prized possessions. But of course, then they're left with less assets on their own books, and of course will not be able to make it out of the crisis, and they'll end up back in this cycle again. They need to get away from the euro. They need to get off of that interest rate, this extremely low interest rate, and they need to recover. But that's not going to happen. They are just going to continue with their austerity. Here, out of Business Week, European stocks rise most in a week after Draghi comments. See, as I talked about in the beginning, the stock market should be plummeting, but we have individuals like Draghi, like Yellen saying, just going out there and suggesting, look, we're going to print, I promise you, we're going to print. Right here, European stocks rose most in a week, reversing earlier losses after Mario Draghi said the European Central Bank's expanded purchase program could include government bonds. That's right, they're going to do exactly what they did in the US and purchase billions upon billions of dollars of government bonds. So you don't need to worry about all that bad debt because the central banks around the world are going to buy it up. That's what I continuously have conversations with people in the finance industry and outside of the finance industry, suggesting to me that it's okay to have a lot of debt, particularly when your own country owns it, because it is not a problem. We can manage it. But the fact remains is that when you have a central bank printing money out of thin air to buy that debt, you're left with a pile of IOUs that will never and cannot ever be paid back. This is something that I bring up often, and I have still seen no reason to think otherwise than a major catastrophe. Right here, you can look at this for yourself. This is 12 charts showing you the changes 2014-2015 EPS forecast by country region. Look at this. World, USA, Europe, everywhere around the world going down. All of them revised downward because that's the way it's headed. We're not getting into a recovery, we're getting into a downtrend. And this is not geographically just one region. We're looking at this everywhere because all markets are interconnected. But then you look at the stock market and it's completely dislocated from all of the other economic forces. This is where we have a big problem. Now, for my biggest news of the day, something I'm going to do an entire video about in the near future, the Brisbane Action Plan outlined in the official communique looks to ramp up investment, trade, employment, and establish a more sound macroeconomic policy. This is out of RT, but they're talking about the G20 that took place in Australia just recently, and it said that they collectively control 85% of the global economy, 75% of world trade. Now, for the big news, a new bail-in strategy to protect taxpayers in the case banks go bust was endorsed by participants, and leaders also found common ground on the tackling tax evasion. But they just sort of mentioned it there, but I'm going to have to dig deeper into this. A bail-in strategy for all G20 nations. That's right. They're going in and they are going to implement this everywhere. I warned about this, that they are setting up this plan all around the world. And here right now, that just happened at the G20, this bunch of criminals, the 20 organizations, corporations, also known as countries, in Australia, they met up and they decided that they would all impose a bail-in regime, as was called in the Canadian Action Plan for 2013. and they're gonna do this. I have been warning about this. Where is the rest of the, forget about the mainstream media, where is the rest of the alternative news talking about the bail-ins? Nobody's talking about this. I am here alerting the public to this. Where are you going to put your money? Where do you have your money right now when they are slowly, systematically setting up for exactly what happened in Cyprus? And they could go one step further. They could actually trick people into taking their money, taking their investments, and then replacing them with government bonds that are completely useless, dated further out into the future to buy themselves more time. This is what I am warning about, and I hope that you found this informative. Guys, I really appreciate all of the comments, all of the the support that I've been getting on here. It's very important. What's more important is that you understand this information, the severity of it, because we're headed for destruction. I really believe that there is a catastrophe headed our way, the bail-ins being the next strategy. They are worried about the bailouts. People are always, don't bail out, and this is going through, even the politicians are agreeing with this now, and obviously they had to create a new strategy. And they say, you know what, taxpayers, you're not going to be on the hook next time. We're going to protect you. And the solution for that is a bail-in. And of course, the public doesn't know what that is. They'll agree upon it, and so will the politicians. This is a huge concern of mine. I hope it is to you as well. If you found this informative, please give me a thumbs up. Share the videos on your YouTube, on your Facebook, Twitter. The channel is expanding, and that's because of you, not because of me, because of you guys helping me out. I really appreciate that very much. And of course, don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give it all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.